staying on track, the emotional eating.
Yeah.
And it was Dr. Sivas, and I don't know if he coined this, but or maybe it was Dr. Tro. One of them said, I get it that you emotionally eat. Can you not emotionally eat carbs? And I thought, that's brilliant. So
That is John Clary. I invited him on this podcast because of his absolutely amazing weight loss story, success story. And if you feel that an uphill battle is before you when you try to even knock off a few pounds, I got a story for you. Just watch. If he can do it, you can do it. Enjoy. But my goal is to speak about your health accomplishments.
okay.
Especially that 160 pounds. That's just a little one I'd like to cover.
Well, I think that might be from Vic, because mine's actually 225 pounds.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
225.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm recording this because I might use this one. You lost 225 pounds?
Yeah, I was 424 at my highest. I'm about 190. I go between like 195 and 205 right now.
That's craziness. Anyway, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, when did this start? What was your history? First of all, how did you grow up? Were you an obese child? Were you teeter-tottering? Were you thin, athletic? What was your childhood like in terms of your body weight?
I was a husky.
Husky.
I was a husky. That's what they called us. I guess, I was the chubby kid.
Oh. Okay.
And then as I got older, the weight started to come on, and really right around puberty. And also around puberty, like that wasn't enough. There were a lot of changes in my life, like moving and my parents being divorced and getting shuttled around and just other things happening. And I theorize I turned to food because of all those things.
Yeah.
But I really started putting on the weight when I was about 12 to 13 years old. And by the time I was in high school, I was wearing like sizes in the 50s as far as my waist. And it was really a problem to find clothes to fit me. But I didn't even worry about it. For me, that was normal.
Where'd you grow up?
Well, military family, parents in the Midwest place, but mostly Michigan and Washington State.
Okay. Did you ever try your hand at athletics? Ever? No.
You know what? I remember now around when the weight started coming on, and I was about 12, and I remember going to middle school and having to dress out or, go in the locker room and change my clothes. And I was teased so mercilessly, I never did it again.
Oh no.
So no, I refused. I refused to participate in gym.
I wouldn't blame you.
By the time I got into high school, I was able to get a note from the doctor to excuse me from it. So I never had to do it. And when I went to college, there was a PE requirement, and I took bowling.
Yeah.
And so that satisfied it.
Okay.
So no, I never tried to do anything about my weight until I was in my 20s. And then the different efforts started. I think the very first thing I ever did was Nutrisystem because my boss paid for it and they pushed me into it. And wow, that's cool. I lost some weight, but I don't know, I probably stuck with it for about a month. But as time went by, I tried different things, different diets. I had some success with Overeaters Anonymous 12-step program, and I lost probably about 150 pounds, which was enough for me to find a girl and get married. And then it all started coming back on. And within a few years, I had regained it all plus some. And 424 was my highest weight. That was about a year after my son was born. So that was 1996. And the reason I remember that is because I just remember getting on that big industrial style scale at the doctor's office the night before surgery. And it said 424. And I was just like, wow, it's like, how did this happen? I just couldn't believe that number was just so big. But the bypass had temporary results, had the full Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, and I lost about 70 pounds. And then I started having complications. The pouch came apart, the suture came apart. I had
Oh,
ulcers. They had to do multiple endoscopies and tools down my esophagus, and essentially had to reverse the procedure.
that's very traumatic.
Yeah, quite. But I never gave up totally. So I would go back to my old eating habits, regain the weight, and then I would try again. And so I was doing kind of like paleo about 2015, and I started to get some results, but I was still a little misguided as far as, well, I thought that like the chickpea snacks, the crispy chickpea snacks, those are so much better than potato chips. But no, not really. It was still a really bad eating habit.
Yeah.
But I did take off probably about 50 pounds doing that. And then I happened, and I was type 2 diabetic. I got diagnosed with the type 2 diabetes probably um, early in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And really, I was ashamed about that. I didn't even tell my wife about it. I
Oh.
just said, well, doctor says I have high blood sugar, which
Mhm.
sounded so much better than diabetes to me.
Mhm.
But that started the typical. First you get the metformin, and it might help a little bit, and then you go back and it's, well, that's not working so well. Let's increase the dose. And then years went by, and it's like, okay, we're going to put you on a sulfonylurea. We're going to put you on this. We'll put you on the injectables. And then finally it was like, we're going to have to put you on insulin. And I was pretty ignorant about my diabetes, really, because I just did what I was told.
Yeah.
Just take these meds. But I knew that wasn't going to be good. And I stumbled across an article by Jason Fung, and he talked about the body being like a sugar bowl. And if you're diabetic, you have too much sugar in your sugar bowl. So how about we treat the root cause? Quit putting the sugar in the sugar bowl. And then the other part of it would be to empty out the sugar bowl, which is, well, you can start like cutting out snacking, but really that's the fasting. It's like, this is interesting. And I'll tell you, Diane, after I read that blog post, I was like, I think there's something to this. And the Obesity Code was still a pretty new book, and I ordered it on the Kindle and read it immediately in one step. And I remember crying because I felt like it wasn't all my fault. Yes, I put the food in my mouth, but I didn't understand about insulin and how hunger worked. And if you have high levels of insulin, you're in storage mode. It's going to be really hard to lose weight. So I started doing what he said to do. And for me, it was eating real food. I was doing a zero carb approach and not snacking. I still did mostly time restricted eating, eating once or twice a day with the occasional shorter fast thrown in. And within about 3 months, I normalized my blood sugar after being on meds for 20 years. Normal blood sugar. I still had the dawn phenomenon. It was still high in the morning, but I was able to get off the meds in about 3 months. Not just the meds for the type 2, but also the meds for the high blood pressure. And I was on a statin, and I was on a med for acid reflux. And there were 9 medications altogether. In 3 months, I was off all of it. And I went back to the doctor, and I had dropped probably 40 pounds by that time.
Uh-huh.
And had my blood sugar down. He looked at me and says, how'd you do that? And by then I knew, don't say fasting, don't say keto, don't say carnivore. I just said, well, I quit eating junk and I quit eating all the time. And he said, that's really awesome. That's really great. And I wanted to say, well, why didn't you tell me about this before? Why did I have to stumble across this information myself? But that's how we treat type 2 diabetes. We treat it.
You treat it, you don't resolve it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So pretty much what I did was that was how diabetes was treated before the pharmaceuticals were invented, before the pharmaceuticals came along. And you can look at the documentation now, the medical texts, as well as like cookbooks and guides written for the everyday person. They all talk about staying away from the starches and the sugars. I remember hearing that when I was a kid because my grandmother was type 2 diabetic, hearing about starches and sugars.
Yeah, the emphasis was fat in the 90s, right? Everything low fat. it really, even though we heard in the 70s and maybe 80s that, oh, you know, a little too much bread, a little too much pasta could put a little weight around the middle, we completely forgot that. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but why? You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Well, we
Doctor,
like eating those foods.
yeah. I mean, you have to eat something. If
Well,
you
and it
can't
gives
eat
us
fat,
something, right?
what?
It gives us something. When I first started making the dietary changes, it's like, yeah, having hard-boiled eggs and some cheese sticks just doesn't seem as great as nachos and ice cream and pizza.
Yeah. So you, with all that weight, you made it the way you just described how you lost weight. First of all, I will also, or second of all, after this, I want to get to your timing, like when you finally reached your weight that you're at now. But during that time, you just made it sound so easy. Obviously, it wasn't that easy. Was there an addiction component you had to deal with, or what?
I think absolutely, absolutely. And I had a friend of mine who just posted I posted a picture of myself. It was a Facebook memory of when I had reached my goal weight. And she says, I don't know anybody else. Oh, I know one other person who's been able to do what you do. And it's like, you have so much willpower. And I just had to say, I really don't have the willpower. It was like perseverance and just not giving up. And there were so many times I fell off the wagon. But as time went by, the times where I went off track didn't happen as often. And when they did happen, I could get back on track instead of a month or next year, it was more like after the weekend, or maybe it was just one meal.
Nice. That's what I describe to my clients, that your indiscretions, first of all, the guilt, if we can get away from the guilt and use some coping mechanisms, but your indiscretions will get further and further apart and you won't dive off the deep end as bad. It gets better and better. What were your biggest coping mechanisms at the time? Was it more physiological just because you were eating the right food and not the crap? Or did you have a lot of psychological coping mechanisms that you used?
Well, I'll tell you, the food, it was only a few days. I was doing the zero carb approach, which most people call carnivore now, but we called it zero carb then. In fact, there's still the groups I'm in are still called zero carb. And because I was never a vegetable eater, I never really ate fruits or vegetables. So after I read Dr. Fung and I knew I had to cut out the carbs, that meant all that was left was meat, eggs, cheese, fish, and some nuts and seeds. And so that's basically what I ate. My carbs were under 10 or 20 grams most days, but that gave me some satisfaction. So I wasn't hungry all the time. I wasn't on the glucose roller coaster all the time. Now I believe there was a big effect on the inflammation in my brain. And I just felt so much better. I didn't want to eat that way anymore. But there was totally an addiction component or a compulsive eating component. And I've said to some folks, it's like, I remember times where I'm eating and crying at the same time because I wanted to stop so bad and I just couldn't do it, or I couldn't do it for more than a day or two. And that feeling largely went away when I got off of the carbs, especially the processed food. And so that was huge. That was instrumental in the beginning. But the thing that I have to say was probably the most important thing was community and getting in touch with other people who were on the same path, who had similar struggles, who were also trying to cut out the carbs, maybe do some fasting, make some major life changes. And so we kind of worked on that together, which led to me. I never thought I would be a health and wellness coach. I worked in information technology. Nothing to do with that, but that's what happened. And here I am. That was about 7 years ago. I started that.
So when did you meet your current body weight? Or actually, when did you feel like I got this? Not even necessarily the weight you're at now, but when did you think, oh my gosh, I did it? How far along? And what weight
Well, I guess, I remember the day where I looked at the scale and I said, I think I'm done. think I'm there because I thought my goal weight would be like 250 pounds because I had never been a normal weight.
How
I'd
tall are
always
you?
been, I'm
How
6 feet tall.
six? So you're at 250 and you're like, wait, what was the weight where you think I'm
Well, I
done?
thought 250 might be the weight.
Yeah. So
But
what?
no, I'm still fat. So I just revised the goal and I thought, well, maybe 225. Let's reevaluate then. And then I think the lowest I got was 186 pounds, and I think that was a little maybe not underweight, but that was really hard for me to maintain. So just eating normally, my weight stabilized at about 195. So it fluctuates a little bit, but that's where I've been about 3 years. So it took about 5 years to take the weight off.
Nice.
But we all want to be thin tomorrow, but life. So, and I have said, and I really believe that reversing my diabetes was my main objective, and the weight loss was a side benefit. And my life just got so much better in so many ways that the weight wasn't even as important as it had been. But it was still great to get it off. It took about 5 years. So it's been about 3 years that my weight has been stable. I had a DEXA scan last year where it's like an MRI for the body and it measures your weight and how much of you is bone and muscle and fat. And I had another one about 2 weeks ago. And over the past year, my weight changed 6 ounces.
Wow.
6 ounces. And so that told me that not just did I lose the weight, and I've proven this to myself with lab tests, having my fasting insulin tested. I have a normal metabolism. I have reversed my insulin resistance. And honestly, I never went back to the nachos and the donuts and the Captain Crunch and the Cheetos and all that stuff. But I eat differently now than I did 5 years ago or 7 years ago. And I do have, if I go to a restaurant, I don't unreasonably restrict myself. I pretty much eat what I want, but there's just certain foods I don't want. I don't want donuts.
You want different foods now because your body seeks differently, right?
I think you have that right. Exactly.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around. Do you remember the last time when you were a child that you didn't feel husky?
When I was a child, oh, I was always husky. I was always husky. I was big. I was obese in high school, and I was like the punching bag. And every day I would get assaulted just because I was fat. I mean, like punched throughout the day, like school buses driving by and kids spitting out the window at me.
This leads me to ask you, have you gone to a high school reunion yet?
I have.
How was that?
It was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome. But at the time I went to the reunion, it was the first one I ever went to. And I think it was about 5 years ago. And I wasn't at my goal weight, but I had dropped from 400 down to 300 maybe. So I felt really good. And I know in comparison, I looked pretty decent.
Just wait for another 5 years. I'm gonna show
yeah.
So a lot of people, before they start, they hesitate because they look at themselves and think, I just got too much to lose. What would you tell them? I mean, I usually say, if 5 years ago or a year ago or whatever, you did start, would you be proud of yourself for losing the whatever amount of weight? Give scenarios. What do you tell somebody when they're afraid to start because they don't feel like it's even worth it because they have so much to lose?
I'd like to talk about how I felt so much better just after a few days of changing my food. I felt so much better. I just knew there had to be something to this. And again, I talk about how it's not easy. The way that I ate, the way so many of us eat, it's doing something for us, or we wouldn't keep doing it. It's not just because that food tastes so good. I mean, they do engineer it to make you want to keep eating it and not stop. But, like I talked about eating while you're crying because you can't stop, like opening the trash can and pulling out the food that you threw away, well, I'm never going to eat that again. Things like that. I did things like that. I know a lot of people do those kind of things. And that's why I like to talk about that, because I'm not proud of it, but I think sometimes people think they're the only ones that do that.
Yeah.
And yes, it took me 5 years to lose the weight, but it's 5 years that we're going to go by anyway. And honestly, Diane, being 400 pounds on all those meds, I also had a CPAP because I couldn't breathe at night. I doubt I would be alive today if I didn't take the path I'd taken. And I know that other people have told you the same thing, and it's true. It's true. The body can only take so much.
Yep. So I bet you there's a lot of things you're doing now that you wouldn't have been able to do if you stayed alive and kept that weight on. What kind of things have you discovered that you can do and you enjoy so much?
Well, physical activity.
Anything, right?
You know what? It's crazy. You know what my first fitness goal was? I wanted to be able to walk to the water fountain and back to my desk at the office. That was the first goal I set to me. Maybe it was 100 feet. But for me, that was a big thing because not only was it making sure I just got that little walk every hour, it also got me out of my cubicle where I used to hide. And people, well, who's that? Because they weren't used to seeing me because, I didn't want to be around other people very much. So the fitness, the movement has been really important to me. I'm a walker more than anything else. I have worked with personal trainers, weightlifting and so forth. I try to do some yoga, some stretching, but walking is my bedrock.
Nice. Very nice. You seem this is off topic a little bit, but for as much as you may have been hiding or just not out with the cool kids or any kids because of your bullying, you seem very well adjusted. You seem strong psychologically. Have you noticed, I don't know, what's gotten you so strong? Do you think it was growing up in an adverse situation? Like, I'm really proud of you and how much you've dealt with and how you've succeeded. What do you think it is about you that's allowed that to happen?
I wish I had a easy answer for that. I don't know, but there's just something where I never gave up, and it would be hard, and maybe there would be months or even years in between efforts, but I never gave up. I always had some hope that I would be able to resolve this, to beat this, and it finally happened. So it was about 3 years ago I hit the goal weight, and in that 3 years I haven't had any times where I fell off the wagon. I finally feel like I have beat it. I never worry about regaining the weight anymore.
You had a major mental switch, huh? But it's a journey, right?
It is a journey, and it for me, and I see this with other people too. It's like, wow, this got better. I feel better. I wonder what else I can do that's going to make me happier and stronger and live a better life.
What else have you done besides walking?
Well, that's a big part of it. Just
yeah.
And doing things. So things like meditation and doing some yoga and thinking about food quality and thinking about, wow, what am I absorbing through my skin when I put lotions and soaps and detergents on me?
Look at you.
Thinking about ancestral health a lot. The way that we have moved and lived throughout our history has been, fairly constant up until about 100 or so years ago. And like my posture is really bad, and I've got really, really tight hips and hamstrings from all the years of sitting. So I took some classes, went to a conference about ancestral health and functional movement, and learned about, well, like, for example, my shoes. Like, I walk with zero heel shoes now because when you're wearing regular shoes, you're tilting your pelvis in an unnatural position. So the zero heel shoes, like you're walking barefoot all the time, I have felt and noticed the difference. I definitely felt the difference when I started wearing them a lot, because it's like, my aching hips and hamstrings. But that was a temporary thing, just retraining my body. So, our grandparents, or maybe our great grandparents, they had it right.
You got that right. Retraining. I like what you just said. You retrained yourself all over the place. Did you ever have any friends or family who were naysayers or sabotagers or anything?
Oh my gosh, saboteurs. Yeah. I remember I was about a month into this, and I was with my daughter, and we were visiting someone, and I was fasting, and I was eating low carb, very low carb, and I got the John, that's not safe. And I'd heard it already, and I just says, you know, you've known me my whole life. I've been fat my whole life. I'm trying this now. Can you just support me on this? And she stopped. And then, you know, after a period of time, it's like, will you tell me more about this fasting thing and this low carb thing? So that was pretty cool. But really, naysayers, like in general, like I'll post something on Facebook every now and then about losing weight or reversing diabetes, and there's always somebody that says, oh, you can't reverse diabetes. If you go back to eating the way you used to, then you're going to get it back. And or there's no cure. You know, it's like you're going to be stuck with this forever. It's progressive disease. And I'm just like, well, while other people say you can't do it, I'll just keep doing it. Okay. And, you know, enjoy your day. Have a good day.
Is that not the stupidest thing you ever heard?
I know.
You can't reverse it. So
well, you know, I heard somebody else give an analogy that it's like, okay, you go to the jungle, you get bitten by a mosquito and you get treated for malaria, your malaria is cured. But if you go back in the jungle, get bit again. So yeah, so I became fat, sick, diabetic by eating food-like substances, not really even real food. So yeah, if I go back to eating that poison, I'm going to get sick again. Why would I want to go back to eating the poison?
Because you just feel so good, you're gonna stick with it. So that's a huge point right there. People feel weak, so it's hard for them to even start. But if they just knew that their chemistry is keeping them paralyzed where they're at right now, and the chemistry is a product of what they've been eating, even how they think is a product of how they've been eating, if they just understood that, right? And so you don't only just eat correctly or better, real food, lower carb, but you also take breaks. So it's about timing as well, huh?
Absolutely. Well, you know, fasting was instrumental for me. And I don't think I could have reversed the diabetes without the fasting, because it takes time to reverse your insulin resistance. The only way to do that, as far as I know, there's no pill for this. Exercise can help, but really, it's diet, and it's really what you're doing in the kitchen, what you're eating or not eating. Because to reverse the insulin resistance, to address high levels of insulin in the body, you have to give your pancreas a break. 2 ways to do that: stop eating the foods that cause a big insulin response: cake, cookies, pie, bread, grains, sugar,
Alcohol.
and then so you have less insulin produced when you are eating, and then reduce the number of times you even need to have an insulin release. So instead of having a low level insulin release all day long because I'm eating all day long, maybe I'll have 2 insulin releases, breakfast and lunch, or lunch and dinner. But if I'm fasting, then my insulin levels can drop much lower. Like if I do a 3-day fast, the literature says your insulin levels, it takes about 72 hours to get your insulin levels as low as they're going to go, but you will enjoy a reduced level of insulin for the next couple of weeks. And with my clients, it's the longer overnight fasts just seem to be required to get those insulin levels down as low as they need to go. Now, just for weight loss, people can get really good results just doing time restricted eating. Just cutting out snacking can pick the low hanging fruit, so to speak, and get you started. But you know, most people are going to have to do something a little more aggressive. But it also doesn't mean that you're going to have to do like 3 42-hour fasts a week for the rest of your life. You're working on a situation where you're going to need to address things a little more aggressively to get the results you want. While you're getting those results, you're treating the root cause of the problem. So if you're treating the root cause, you're not slowing down your metabolism like you're going to do on a calorie restriction diet. And that's why we regain the weight, because nobody can stick to that diet forever. Now, some people would say that about keto or low carb, but I don't know. I've been doing it a long time. Lots of people do it a long time. It's how everybody used to eat. It's not even a fad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people won't realize that what you just said was a gem there. Well, everything is. It's liquid gold or verbal gold to me. But you just said what I heard. I don't know if people actually hear it the same way as I do, but you mentioned fasting. That's better than caloric restriction, but to some people it is caloric restriction. But in my world, it's when you have calorically restrict, you're still having some carbs, so we're still exposed to that insulin. So you're still dependent on carbohydrate for your energy, because when insulin is circulating, you're not able to free up your fat to use for energy. And people don't get that. And they just, you're going to burn up all your muscle while you're wasting. It's going to ruin your hormones. But they're not realizing that dip in insulin and some other hormones, and then a rise in some of the good hormones, are actually going to set you up for an amazing metabolism. Not that everyone should just jump and start doing 3-day fasts here and there. It's something that people can grow into, and not that they'll need it for the rest of their lives, but it is a huge therapeutic tool. And I'm really impressed that you got into it and you weren't scared. How long into your the most recent health change, your successful health change, how long into that did you start a 3-day fast? Like, did you build up? Did you do time restriction at first? What'd you do?
I jumped into an extended fast.
You did?
Yeah, and that's not what I recommend to people. But the book came out and I didn't have any support whatsoever. So I thought, hey, you know what? This sounds like a good idea. And I remember it very well. I remember sitting at my desk, getting the brain fog and having the headache and just not feeling great at all. But I remember the book said, the hunger will come in a wave, just push through. So that's what I did. And so I pushed through, and then I finally broke my first fast after 3 days, because it was Friday, it was happy hour. I thought I'd done well enough. But after that, I jumped into the time restricted eating. For my first couple of years of fasting, I did mainly extended fast, like 5 days, 7 days, 10 days periodically.
I've never done that.
It's an experience. I'm very glad I did it.
Wow. So how often do you do a fast, and what kind do you do? Like, do you do one once a month, or like, what do you do?
Well, now that I've been at my goal weight, now I don't do very much fasting anymore. I still do time restricted eating, where most days are 1 or 2 meals. If it's convenient to fast or inconvenient to eat, like tomorrow's going to be a travel day for me, it's just going to be easier for me to just call it a fasting day. And the fasting gives me flexibility, so I don't have to worry about packing food. I don't have to worry about getting anything in the airport or paying $5 for 2 hard-boiled eggs, things like that. So the fasting is kind of impromptu like that. Or a friend will say, hey, I want to do 5-day fast this week, or I want to do 342s this week, 342-hour fast this week. You want to join me? I'm like, sure, I'll do it, just to support my friend or find somebody. I think it's always easier if you can find somebody. Huh?
You're a great friend.
Well, I think it's great for our health. I think even if you don't have weight that you want to lose, when you're on an extended fast, that's when you're going to get the most autophagy, cleaning up the junky cells, the precancerous cells, shrinking up the loose skin.
I was just going to say
all the things that have to be cleaned up in the body. They accelerate when you're in the fasted state, because your body doesn't know when you're going to get food again.
Mm-hmm. Anything you want to say that you didn't say yet?
Something I thought of when you talked about when I first got started making these changes, and how the desire to overeat or eat certain foods would come back from time to time, like when COVID started. I definitely had a backslide during COVID because I just started going to the comfort food. Honestly, I didn't take it well. I thought we were all going to die. That didn't happen. But
Oh,
I might never get Ben and Jerry's again, so I better have it now.
nicely put.
So
Yeah.
there were times that I went off track and put some weight back on, but it might be like, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. But, if you look at I've got a spreadsheet with a chart of my weight loss. And if you look at it from a distance, it's definitely a downward trend. But if you look at it up close, you see there are lots of ups and downs.
Between 2000 and 22.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, actually,
2022.
2020 was when I finally got it together. 2020 was also the year when I had stopped drinking alcohol.
Hey
That
now,
made a really big difference.
tell us about that, because I have clients where that's a huge thing.
It is.
Huge.
It is.
So how'd you do
Well,
it?
I did a dry January. Dry January, where you just say, for January I'm not going to drink, and it was like I could not believe how much better I felt within a few days. And it's like my sleep got good, and it kept getting better every day. It's like, I don't want that anymore. And so that was like 3.5 years ago. And I learned, I didn't know this at the time, but when you eat carbs, your body's going to burn the carbs before it burns off anything else you eat, before the protein and fat.
With
I
alcohol.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that if you drink alcohol, the alcohol is going first. So if I drink 2 drinks, anything I eat along with it, any carbs that are in that drink, it's just going to get turned right into fat. So
And
learning
even
about that oxidative priority made a huge difference for me. And in my chart for my weight loss, what you can see when I quit drinking is like boom, I got boom right to my goal. Happened really fast.
I am so proud of you. Wow. Do you ever have a little bit anymore, or you just don't have a need for it anymore, or what?
I don't want it, and that's the beauty of it. It's like with the donuts. It used to be like when I was working in an office, somebody bring donuts in or cake or whatever, which was pretty much every day. And I'd think, I've got to stay away from room 17. They've got cake in there today. They have donuts. And then with time, it somehow became, ew, I don't want that. They might as well brought in a tray full of fish eyeballs or tripe or something like that.
Yeah.
And it got to be that way with the alcohol too. I really don't want it. I don't like how it makes me feel.
Uh,
So what I was going to say earlier about staying on track and emotional eating,
yeah.
and it was Dr. Sivas, and I don't know if he coined this, but or maybe it was Dr. Tro. One of them said, "I get it that you emotionally eat. Can you not emotionally eat carbs?" And I thought that's brilliant. So I'll
Yep.
say to people, well, Megan Ramos, I heard her say it first. It's like, you want something sweet? Go eat a piece of bacon.
Mhm.
And it's true, it's like you have that desire to eat. So if you can eat something, it's better not to snack, especially if you're fasting. But if you eat something that's going to help you stay on track instead of take you off track,
If
it's
it's
worth
gonna
it.
help and not initiate insulin, bam,
Yes.
there you go.
Boom.
Yeah, one of my main things for my clients who must snack, is just high fat protein snacks. It works real well.
Mhm.
Real well. So what have you learned most about yourself? What are you most proud of, like intellectually?
Oh my gosh, honestly, helping other people, it just turned into such a passion. And just because it really was it Toy Story? It really burns my biscuits. It just I posted on Facebook a few days ago. I'm on Facebook a lot. It was one of those ads for Jardiance, but it's not just Jardiance. It's Ozempic and all Ribelsis, all of them, and they all have they're commercials that are people singing and
Yeah.
dancing and have a great time. And I got my A1C down to 7. And I want to say 7 is still really sick, my friends. You've got to change how you eat. Otherwise, it's like they want to keep you just sick enough to need the meds.
Just a little bit.
Yeah,
Yep.
and buy the food.
They want to normalize illness.
Well, and then when somebody like me comes along well, my doctor said it's okay for me to eat this. Well, there you go about the naysayers again. Well,
Is it okay to, and you just rattle off all the problems they have?
well, I had some comments on that Facebook post I made where people said, if it was realistic, they wouldn't show people dancing around. They'd show people that have had their limbs amputated and
Dialysis.
yes. Oh,
Yep.
yeah. It doesn't have to be that way. So I've got enough people I work with who want to reverse their diabetes, who want to lose weight, who want to improve their health, that I don't need to waste my time with the people who are telling me I'm doing it wrong.
You go. Well, apparently you're doing something right. So you are coaching. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I talked about community early on because after I started doing this, after I started with the zero carb and the fasting, I just looked online. I was doing searches on Google, support group for fasting, support group for zero carb, and I found some Facebook groups. And one of the Facebook groups I found was based. It was I think it was one of Dr. Fung's clients and or one of Megan's clients. And I joined that group and started getting involved, and that just it got their attention because I was getting results and it seemed like I knew what I was talking about, and it just kind of grew from there. And then I developed a contact and relationship with intensive dietary management, Dr. Fong and Megan, and it grew into the fasting method. And I told Megan that I was really interested in coaching, and so we worked on making that happen. So it's been about 5 years now, going on 5 years, that I've been coaching for the fasting method.
Congrats.
And it really is where my passion is now. So I retired from my IT career about 1.5 years ago, and this is what I do now. Nobody ever, when I was in IT, I never had anybody thank me for helping them get off meds, or thank me because now they can get on the ground and play with the grandkids, or thank me for helping them save their life. They're the ones that did all the work. That's what coaching is. It's you still have to do the work. I can't reach through the camera over Zoom and knock the donut out of your hand, but I can help you. I can help you set goals, and I can help you be accountable, and I can share my experience and answer questions and let you know what other people have done, and hopefully give you the motivation to make the changes they're going to get you where you want to be.
Amen to that. Dr. Jason Fung, that's who you're speaking of. And actually, I credit him for being one of the first doctors. I heard Jason Fung, and then right after Ken Berry. It was a very amazing day for me. I was a health coach at the time, driving from one building to another, one site to another. And I was just listening, and I was like, I gotta help more people. This is ridiculous. Let me stop listening to music and start retraining myself. And Jason Fung, in one of his YouTube videos, when I like to do impersonations, but I will mess up his lovely demeanor and voice. But he basically said, the fact that you don't die while you're sleeping has got to tell you something. We don't need to keep putting stuff in our mouth every hour. Like we often would tell our patients, oh, just eat more often so you don't overeat at your meals. No, that's the worst thing you can tell somebody for the most part. So yeah, he was very instrumental in my evolution as well. And this is totally off the topic, but I always like to ask my guests, if there's 3 things you had to bring to an island or hunt, forage, whatever, on an island, what would it be food-wise?
Oh, food-wise?
Yeah.
Definitely eggs. Eggs has been like my number one food throughout my whole journey the last 7 years. Eggs sustain me. I say eggs, they're good because it's got everything you need to create a whole animal. So eggs has been the foundation of my diet. Eggs, ribeye steak, and probably everybody would want me to say bacon, just because honestly, I hardly ever eat bacon. I love bacon. Bacon's great, but bacon's a mess make. So I don't eat a lot of bacon, but we'll say bacon and eggs and ribeye steaks.
If
That's
you
gonna
didn't
be
have to
my
clean.
foods. What's that?
If you didn't have to clean, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, pre-cooked bacon's not the same.
No. I cannot thank you enough. Can you tell us where we can find you on social media?
Absolutely. Well, I've got my own website, johnclary.com. And also you can find information about me, the coaching program, our community website at thefastingmethod.com.
Well, that's simple enough. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you for everything you do.
Oh, thanks.